Answer the question of the day today, which is pretty cool. Yen the Winter Wolf answers saying, almost all the time. You feel bored almost all the time, and you tend to not get a lot of things done in terms of hobbies because you get bored and hop to something else fairly quickly. And you don't really have a way to deal with boredom. Wow, okay. Well, thank you for sharing. So it sounds like you deal with boredom a lot, and you don't really get a lot of things done in terms of hobbies because you get bored of them. Is that just because like you'll start doing something and then you're like, this isn't really that fun anymore. It's not very interesting. So you'll sort of like switch gears and jump to something else. Yeah. Yeah, boredom's a tricky thing. It can be a tough thing to tackle. This question was kind of inspired by some chat that was going on in the Discord recently, where people were talking about like having too much time on their hands and being bored because of that. And I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I don't feel that bored very often. You know, it's not really something that I personally deal with. And so because of that, I was like, well, you know, I never really think that much about boredom as a subject. And I remember being bored a lot whenever I was younger. You know, especially like in high school, I would get very bored. And I remember I used to complain about it a lot. And then I just like play video games or like read books or something like that, you know, to kind of like fill my time. But nowadays I feel like boredom can't happen to me that often because I have stuff to do all the time. And when I don't have something to do, I'm like, awesome, I have things I want to do. And before I get bored of something, I usually like run out of time, you know? Angry Ranger, man, thank you for that sub, love. I appreciate it very much. How are you doing, man? Welcome back. Holy smokes, 12 months. It's your anniversary. It's your fence-anniversary over here. Holy smokes. Doo-doo-doo. Hey, Mashi, what's going on? Welcome back, bud. Thanks for coming to support the fence. Totally did not forget about the stream today. No, it's cool. I hope you had a good nap, man. Self-care is important. Take care of yourself, man. It's good to see you here. Quality options are back up? I don't understand. We've been wondering about the quality options thing for like, well, I would say weeks. Several streams. It's been about a month since I've been live, so that there's a different connotation to that statement. But anyway, it's super weird. We didn't have them for a while, and we used to have them. I wonder what happened today that Twitch is like, you know what, Vince needs to have the quality options back for him and his LLGs. Hey, I'll take it. There you guys go. Use them if you got them. So Yin, usually it's due to your ADHD. You're constantly doing multiple things at a time. So you're a multitasker, for sure, huh? Okay. But I mean, that's cool. So that sounds like that's kind of one of the methods that you use to deal with those feelings of boredom. You know, you do different things, more than one thing at a time. I think that's cool. I used to do that too. I used to do a whole lot of different stuff at the same time. You know, I'd play a video game while I was listening to music, and I would also be, like sometimes I'd play like multiple video games, or I'd be watching like a video while I was playing the game and stuff. And I felt like I could keep track of all those things. I cannot do that anymore. I have to focus on one thing now. Otherwise it's like, I'm not absorbing like anything from all of the different things that I'm doing. I almost always end up focusing my attention on one thing, which might seem weird because, you know, as a live streamer, you do a lot of multitasking, right? Like you're watching the chat, you're playing the game, you know, you're messing with your computer and stuff sometimes. So, I'm still able to do some of it, obviously, but it's really easy for me to get fixated on one thing. So if you're doing multiple things at the same time, I mean, what would that look like on a day-to-day? A horrible nap, Moshi. Man, I'm sorry to hear that, bud. Wait, you got Mario Golf Super Rush. Is that a new game? Lost answered the question of the day saying, well, I get bored when I run out of anime, streams, work, my friends ain't on, and my cat is not around to play with or not in the mood. It sounds like you have a great many criteria that have to be filled in order for you to start getting bored. When that happens, I either find more anime or I sleep. And boredom's pretty bad for me because it leaves me alone with my own brain, which just seems to enjoy thinking about all the depressing stuff instead of the not depressing stuff. That's a pretty common story as well. I think a lot of us feel that way. We tend to fill our time with stuff because there's a lot of times where there's something going on that we feel, whether it's something that's been happening in our life that's been pervasive, or even something that's going on just right now that maybe is unpleasant and we don't want to think about it. Rather than settle on that and just focus on it, we want to do something else, anything but that, so that we don't feel the weight of those things. I think that distractions are okay. I think that getting our mind off of things and, trying to stay positive and keep things moving, that's good, ultimately. But I do think there's a time and a place to sit and reflect on those feelings too. If we're doing so much of our life is tailored to avoid sitting alone with our thoughts because the quality of our mental state is bad, I think that by avoiding it, it either stays the same or it gets worse and it continues to deteriorate, and then it gets harder and harder to sit alone with those thoughts. And I'm speaking from my own experience there. This obviously is not going to apply to everybody, but that's something I thought about when I was reading Lost Response. So, I'm glad that you keep yourself busy. Also, I hope that you allow yourself to take some time to work through whatever it is that you go through as well, buddy. Because from my experience, I have let that stuff pile up before, and man, it has turned into an ugly beast. It likes to come up and bite me sometimes. Meditation has been something that's been very good for me over the years. It helped me deal with that. Thank you for sharing, Lost. I like that. I like that one of your go-tos is your cat too. You just like spending time with your cat. What kind of cat do you have, by the way? Yeah, and so you're watching here, you're watching The Fence, you're playing Minecraft, and you're watching a tutorial for Minecraft. How are you balancing all of that? That's amazing. When I'm doing stuff with other people, I can focus on one thing like watching a movie with someone. Interesting. What makes doing something with somebody else different than doing something by yourself in terms of your ability to focus on it? Lost says, the real problem is when you think you've confronted something, dealt with those things, and then you start thinking about it again. You know what that means? That means that you've got more work to do, If it's still pervasive and coming up like that and saying, hey, I've got something else for you, there might be more to deal with there. Especially with trauma, I see this happen a lot, and I've felt this happen a lot in my life. So, I've had traumas that have, haunted me for years. And I would spend a lot of time focusing on them, whether it was in therapy, whether it was at home through meditation or doing journaling or talking about this with someone else. Whatever my approach was, I would almost always get to a point where I think I have this dealt with. And for the most part, I would have a portion of it dealt with. But because it wasn't as heavy on me anymore, it felt like I'm done with this. And then sometimes, weeks pass or months pass, sometimes even years pass, and something happens in my life that like triggers me or reminds me of something, or sometimes there's nothing external at all, and it's just like it just pops back up in my head, and I'm like, oh damn, there's this whole other element of that I didn't even consider. I gotta deal with that too, and it's never fun. But it's also okay. This happens to I think most of us deal with this in some way. How many people out there right now who are listening to this or watching this have thought that they had something taken care of? You overcame something, some depressing thing or some traumatic thing, only to find out down the road, oh my God, there it is again. Been there, it's okay. Adam, what is going on, buddy? Welcome back home. It's good to see you. How are you doing today, Adam? See, Mashi answered the question of the day saying, boredom, huh? I feel bored all the time. But that's part of my lifestyle, so I usually just switch to playing something else whenever I get too bored of one specific game, or take a nap if I'm tired. Interesting. So, are you saying that you are in a perpetual state of boredom, like all the time? That sounds. I would be so stressed out. Are you stressed out by that, or is it just okay? Thanks, Mashi. I'm doing pretty well. Doing pretty well myself. Jenny, what's going on? Welcome back home. All right, CJ answered the question of the day saying, I really struggle with boredom sometimes, but more in the way that there's a lot I want to do, but can't seem to bring myself to the point of doing it. So I just sort of sit there like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my life? But there's also so much more than just that with me. It sounds like it's a rather complex conundrum to be in, CJ. Thanks for sharing, man. So you struggle with boredom, like you say you really struggle with boredom sometimes. But I like the word sometimes there because it means it's not constant. So that's a good thing. But when it does hit, it hits hard, huh? Man, that's rough. So you say though it's more in the way that there's a lot of things that you want to do but can't bring yourself up to the point of doing that. Is it like a motivation thing, or is it like you don't really have the means to do the thing that you want to do, or where's the barrier there? See, Cloud answers the question of the day saying, I don't feel bored often anymore. My instinct tells me that it's because as we get older, the passage of time is a lot more intense, and even when you don't have a lot going on, that time still seems to slip away from you. I don't know if I believe this next part, but it's an interesting thought still. I think as we get older, we understand our interests more. As a kid, I remember not having a game to play or having friends who didn't like playing sports, and once those two options were exhausted, I was bored. But as I got older, I realized I liked reading a lot. I liked learning about technology. I have all these interests that may only relate to my personality in obtuse ways, and that's hard to figure out when you're still figuring yourself out. Yeah. Maybe broadening your horizons when you're younger has its own unique challenges. I think that's a huge part of it, yeah. Because, like I was saying earlier, like even I was very bored whenever I was younger, especially in high school. I remember feeling bored a lot, as I said. And I think that part of that, yeah, was due to me not necessarily understanding all of the things that I was interested in. And I also think that, my attention span was pretty fleeting for a while anyway. So, much like Yin was saying earlier, where she needs to focus on something, like different things at a time, unless of course they're with somebody else, which I think is very interesting. I was like that too, where I was like, I need a lot of stimulation, And today, I think that especially young people growing up, the information is coming at you so fast, so rapidly, that that's probably exaggerated that problem a little bit more too, where okay, you need a lot more stimulation at one time in order to feel like you're maintaining interest in anything. And I think that was a little bit more of a problem for us when like our generation was younger than it was for the previous generation, but maybe not necessarily as big of an issue as it is to the current generations that are growing up in the world, which is interesting to think about, but ultimately that's a tangent. But coming back to your point, I think that, yeah, that is a very interesting observation, because the passage of time seems more intense as we get older and we have a greater understanding of ourselves and our interests. Maybe that's one of the reasons why we don't get as bored as we're older. I don't know. Anybody in the chat who is like in their late 20s and older, can you weigh in on this? What do you think? Are you less bored nowadays than you were when you were younger? Or are you more bored now than before? What other factors can play into this? Thanks for sharing, Cloud. That's a good response. Yeah, Adam. I'm sorry to hear that you're feeling lonely, man. Lonely and bored. Hey, you came into the right discussion today, buddy. We'll keep you company, and let's talk about that boredom a little bit. We're here for you, buddy. Lost, thank you. Thank you for copying these to Keeper's channel. Here in just a few minutes, we're going to be jumping back into Near Replicant. So anybody else that has responses to the question of the day, we will be getting to them later on in the show. It sounds like Lost is going to be compiling your guys' answers so that we don't lose them. Thank you guys for responding. Garrett, what's up, dude? The Lost Son. That's a title I've never heard for myself before. I'll take it. It sounds like someone who's like wandering the desert, searching for himself, as well as any survivors in a post-apocalyptic world. Good to see you, man. Let's see, Yin. Recently, I thought I had my social anxiety under control, so I got a job at Wendy's. Turns out I didn't. And after the first day, I woke up during the night having a horrible anxiety attack. Man, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, like, okay, so you got a job at Wendy's. One, good for you. That's awesome. You've dealt with social anxiety and got yourself to a point where you felt like you could go and apply and start working at a job. Like, that's progress. That's a big step. So I'm super proud of you. It sounds like you discovered once you got there, hey, there's a new layer to this social anxiety thing that I have to learn how to deal with now. Had you had a job before? Or was this something that, like, you know, it was a new experience, and so it was a new thing that brought an element into your social anxiety that you hadn't even had a chance to deal with yet? Only stress that Mashi has is from his neighbors being noisy, but I got some noisy measurements against that. You battle the noise with noise. I work with someone who does that. They just moved into a new apartment, and I went to visit him over there, and he's like, my neighbors are so loud. So he turned on his Xbox, started playing Call of Duty Zombies, and just like ramped the volume way up. I was like, all right, yeah, whatever works for you. I had to ask him though, I was like, what happens if you're too loud and then the neighbors come and complain? What are you gonna do? And he's just like, well, I'll tell them that they're being too loud too. And I was like, oh, okay. So then you both will come to maybe be able to understand that you're intruding in each other's peace at home a little bit. He's like, yeah, maybe. Yeah, they'll probably just fight with me though. And I was like, well, see what happens. CJ says, I think I sort of get stuck in the I don't know where to start side of things. Whoa! Jay Curry subscribing with the Prime sub. Dude, thank you so much. Jonathan, is that you? Dude, awesome. Thank you so much for the sub love, man. I appreciate it. How are you doing today? I feel like the sub alerts might be a little quiet. Is that just me, or are they actually kind of quiet? Good to see you. How are you guys doing? CJ said, I think I sort of get stuck in the I don't know where to start side of things and just get overwhelmed by that and just blue screen. Oh no. Yeah, starting anything that you're interested in, especially something new, which I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with starting something. So I'll put my foot in my mouth there. But yeah, starting something, that can be the hardest part. How do I get this off the ground? Where do I begin? My simple solution to this a lot of times is to just do it. Just start somewhere. You can start in the wrong place, but if you start in the wrong place, you can figure out that you're starting in the wrong place, and then you can move, you can adjust, right? But before then, it's all like a bunch of hypotheticals and what ifs and what's gonna happen and unknowns, right? When the unknowns can cause us to sort of get like paralyzed in this sea of possibilities that it can be kind of scary and stuff. But if we just, I don't know, just dive in, you know? Start somewhere. If you want to write a song, you don't know what kind of song you want to write, pick up an instrument and just start making sound. See what comes to you, you know? If you want it to be about something, you know, start with words or a feeling, you know, chords or something. If you want to learn how to be a blogger, you know, you could start with research, or you could start with just looking at your journals or just writing anything down. Really, like, there's a bunch of different starting points you could have, and some of them, depending on who you are, might work better than others. But the only way to discover that is to give it a shot. Just pick something and just start with it. Just pick one element of it, I mean, and then start with it and see what happens. Yeah, I feel like you can't really go wrong when it comes to starting something, you know? Within, you know, reason. context can change things, I know, but as a general rule, I feel like if you just start doing anything, it'll give you an idea of what you should do or what you want to do. But taking that first step is so important. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of like, I don't know what's going to happen, you know? And it can be very paralyzing. Yen said, I also think the reason that I can focus when I'm around others has to be 2 reasons. The main reason is my social anxiety. I don't want to feel out of place or noticeable when I'm around others. Okay, that's interesting. And the second reason is some people I feel comfortable around and can relax and not worry as much. So it sounds like your inability to focus when you're alone partially comes from feeling uncomfortable with the lack of an activity, lack of something happening. And then, you know, you're alone with your own thoughts and feelings too. So, you know, you're kind of stressed out or anxious. When you're around others, you said you can kind of relax and feel more comfortable. So those, you know, it kind of makes that easier when you're around other people. And then again, when, you know, you're alone, based on what you're saying here, your social anxiety when you're with people causes you to want to not stand out. And so whenever you're not with people, you're not worried about that element of it more. And so you're kind of just being yourself, and part of being yourself is sort of bouncing around, kind of like that, right? That element of it, I think, is actually cool. If you can find a way to embrace that in a healthy way that works for you and doesn't cause you stress, you know, that might be easier to work with than the latter of trying to just like always not stand out or be quote unquote normal, which, as we all here should know, normality is relative, right? It's everybody's standard for normal is different, and so because of that, we shouldn't feel like we're all trying to meet this universal standard of normal. I think we'll drive ourselves crazy trying to do that. Just being ourselves in a way that works for us, I think, is a good goal. Your door frames are hollow, Mashi? So when someone hits a wall or something, it's like... Also, you're going to hear a lot of sound on the other side of that wall or door. I understand that. You're eating some McDonald's and going to Home Depot, Jonathan. Cool. What kind of stuff are you getting at Home Depot? Realized to get a sub with Prime the other day and wanted to give it to you. Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It helps me out a lot. I appreciate the support. I feel like Lost has lived at Home Depot this year. Who is the mighty Orapax? What? It's a bit quiet, or I'm just freaking loud. What? Oh, I'm probably just freaking loud. Yeah. Hold on. Okay. We're talking about the alerts here. Let me see. I did mess with my microphone and stuff and make that stuff a bit louder. So I can fix the other things. Let's see. How do I fix those things? Oh. I have to fix them like on the browser itself. Okay. Gotcha. So let me do that real quick. Okay. We're jumping up like 20%. This might be overkill, but we'll find out. It also might not be, like, at all. All right, there we go. Okay, the sound effects are a whole other story. I'll have to adjust the sound effect commands later. I am usually too quiet in stream. You're right. But that's why I adjusted the microphone volumes and stuff so that we could get it a little bit more normalized and people could have a little bit more flexibility depending on what type of listening device they were using. I didn't want it to be locked at everybody having to turn everything up to 100% in order to hear anything, because that doesn't, if there's something that's too quiet or something, there's not really a lot we could do with that. So it'll be a work in progress like everything, I guess. All right, Jonathan, have a great day. Give everybody a hug for me and send them my love. And to you as well, buddy. Good luck at Home Depot. We'll see you later. The Mighty Aurapax is a silencer kind of product that you plug into your ear to focus and sleep better if you like your significant other. If like your significant other is also a shiny Snorlax. I am the shiny Snorlax because I can sleep through anything. Oh, that's funny. I do need me a good set of headphones I can sleep with though, comfortably. That aren't gonna like dig into my ear. I don't know if that exists because I like listening to music whenever I sleep, but I don't want to disturb other people. Angry Ranger answered the question of the day saying, so ever since I finally started playing Airsoft, I always feel bored when I'm not out in the field playing because you see so many cool loadouts and people. So since I work a lot, I mostly just have time for video games now, but hopefully next month I can start going out again. Oh, that's a cool subject to bring up too, or a rather perspective to bring up. When you're interested in something new and you start a new hobby or activity of some sort that you're like really excited about, everything else sort of becomes less lustrous. That is, it doesn't really satisfy the need that you have for an interesting activity yet because it doesn't stack up to this new shiny thing, right? And so then you just end up feeling a little bit more bored in general because if you're doing something else aside from that new thing. I totally get that, and I hadn't even thought about that yet today. Thanks for your response, Angry Ranger. Has anybody else gained a new interest, and then when you've gotten into that new thing, you're like, this is awesome, and then everything else kind of seems like it's not really cutting it? It's interesting how things can shift like that, right? Your grandmother calls snoring weremoosing? Weremoosing? I like that. Masha, you're the only one in the family that doesn't snore. That doesn't snore. I thought I didn't snore, but that's not true. It depends on how I'm laying. Have people around you told you that you don't snore? Is that how you know? You're remodeling oh, Jonathan was remodeling a spare rec room in the studio apartment. Oh my gosh. Oh man. So they're remodeling a room. Lost has been remodeling a house. Everybody's doing some remodeling. And that is so much work. Holy smokes. All right, Garrett. I just found your question of the day answer, man. Garrett says, well, boredom itself isn't a huge issue. It's more like a lack of stimulation that hits on me from time to time. Oh, like that unwanted stranger at the bar. Leave me alone. Like finding that area and, hey, I'm stimulated enough so I'm in the zone, but not to the degree of being overwhelmed. Usually I'm pretty good at entertaining myself, so boredom isn't a huge issue. I'm glad that boredom's not a big issue in your life. I think it's one of those things that can be depressing, you know, if it is pervasive in your life. As we've heard from several people here today, it can kind of seem like it overtakes things, and then you're like, ah, God, like, what am I even interested in? It should be a hard feeling to deal with. So for you, it's more like you need something that's going to be stimulating, holding your attention in order to stay interested in. But you want to find something that hits that sweet spot of where it's like, okay, this is holding my attention enough, it's interesting enough for me to continue focusing on, but it's not gonna make me feel like, oh my God, how am I gonna do anything with this? Because it's just too much. Yeah, I think that, you know, with Angry Ranger's response combined with yours, it made me think of something. So, you know, Angry Ranger gets into Airsoft, and he thinks that's really awesome. And it probably hits that sweet spot for him too, where it's fun. But has anybody ever gotten into something new that's like, you thought this was going to be amazing, and then you started working on it, and then you feel like you're in over your head, and then now it's like, oh, I can't do this, you know, and it's just frustrating. Anybody else ever run into that? Because I know I have. We did catch up with chat. Lost? It can happen. Look, I can also do this. Let's see if this works. Oh my God, I have so much power now. I can hit a button to turn on slow mode. I think that's pretty cool. Can I turn it off with a button too? Hell yeah, that's amazing. I put this button on my Stream Deck today to kind of check it out, see if it would work, and it does. That's so exciting for me. Garrett can evacuate hospital rooms at night with his snores. So, in other words, Garrett and Mashi could never dorm together. Oh! Hello! DigiDC! Yo, man, what's going on? Thank you for that sub love, buddy. I appreciate it. 3 months of sub love. Heck yeah. And I am back. I'm back in action. This last month has been weird, dude. I've been so busy. Sorry, I'm like distracted by my sweatiness. I've been so busy. I hadn't had the time to sit down and work on stream stuff in a while. And then when I did, I was like, I want to write music instead. So that's kind of what I've been doing. But yes, now I'm back in it. Hello, here I am. You gotta leave your new job. Okay, so I did see your messages and I totally forgot to respond to them because I opened them up like late at night when I was going to bed. So sorry about that. Yes, so I think you would ask me something about if like what my new job or what my job currently was because you were like looking for something else. So I do peer support work. I'm a certified peer support specialist. So, you know, basically what that is I go out into the community and I help people out with mental health issues to support them on achieving their goals and integrating back into the community. I help them with recovery, really, to put it all in a small or into one term. I help them out with their recovery. And the peer support way is like recovery is defined as remembering who you are so that you can become all you are meant to be. So that's what I do is I help people with that. Anyway, it's a pretty cool field. I got a lot of flexibility in it. Kind of like there's an hourly quota each week I want to meet if I want to hit my 40, obviously. So that I can, you know, be self-sustaining financially. But really, like I set my own schedule, I set my own hours. You know, I decide how and where and when I will meet with the people. I mean, it's a group effort, right? Like, so what I mean by that is like sometimes I'll meet somebody at their house. Sometimes we'll meet at like a park or a restaurant if that makes them feel more comfortable, or depending on their goals, you know. I can meet people at like community centers and places of gatherings and stuff like that if they're trying to like overcome like social anxiety, for instance, and get back out there. I can sort of be like a support for that. So it really depends. But yeah, I don't know if that's something you've ever been interested in though. So I don't know if me explaining that helps, but that's sort of what we do. Mouse, what's up, dude? Welcome back, man. How are you doing? I can legit kill Mashi's mood. Garrett. But if you ask me, how bad can it be? I doubt I sound that bad. How do you know? You're sleeping, buddy. So are you a social worker or is that a different thing? From my understanding, I'm pretty close to what a social worker would be. Because, you know, a social worker is not necessarily like a therapist or a psychologist or anything like that. They'd be closer to like a resource coordinator, I feel like, and someone who could like talk you through what you're going through. So, yeah, I'd say that's a pretty close way of a pretty close comparison would be like a social worker. Kind of does. I'm looking for something where I can give back to the community, says Digi. Just not in that way, but it's nice to know that's a kind of job. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that was a kind of job until just a handful of years ago. I wish I knew sooner. That would have been amazing. But it was through doing this stuff that I kind of got to learn about it. So it's just funny how life works. You're an accountant right now. Okay. But you're leaving your job, right? Just don't go meet them behind the old abandoned church in the woods. What if they're nature people and they're also very spiritual, Lost? That could happen, in which case I might. Okay? I might.